I drove up to the Riverside Country Club in my 2014 Honda Civic, feeling out of place. My family's luxury cars, sleek black SUVs, shiny sedans with polished chrome rims, lined the entrance like a red carpet for the rich. And then there was me, the odd one out. It was hard not to notice. Marcus, my brother, was the first to spot me. As I parked, I saw him snicker with Victoria, my sister. They didn't even try to hide their laughter. "Emma, seriously? You couldn't afford something a little better?" Marcus called out, strutting over to my car. He leaned against it with an exaggerated sigh, eyeing it like it was the most embarrassing thing he'd ever seen. "Yeah, it's kind of a joke," Victoria chimed in, glancing at me from the doorway of the club. "I mean, you're out here teaching technology to kids who don't even have internet access. No wonder you can't afford anything decent." I swallowed my frustration. I knew where this was going, but I couldn't stop it. I had always been the outsider, the one who didn't measure up to their high-powered careers and polished appearances. Our dad was just walking out from the club's doors, his face already etched with disappointment. "Emma," he said, his tone too casual to be sincere, "you really need to start thinking about your future, a real job, not whatever you're doing with that nonprofit. You could be earning a real salary, building some wealth like your brother and sister." I gripped the car's door, feeling the sting of his words. "I am building something, Dad," I replied, my voice firm despite the sting in my chest. "I'm helping kids get access to technology. That's worth more to me than a big paycheck." My dad gave me a look like I had just spoken another language. "It's admirable, Emma, but let's be real. You're not going to get anywhere doing that. You need to start thinking about your future. Look at your siblings. Marcus works at a top firm. Victoria's doing well for herself. They figured it out." I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to tell them how hollow their version of success felt, how I was teaching kids something that could change their lives, but instead I just stood there, silently fuming. Victoria shot me a glance, then shrugged. "You should just accept it, Emma. I mean, I get it. You want to make a difference and all, but money, status, those are what make the world turn. You'll never be able to live like this, stuck in some nonprofit." It was like my entire existence, my career, everything I worked for, didn't matter to them. I wasn't successful because I didn't fit into their narrow vision of success. Maybe if you put your efforts into something with a real salary, you'd be able to. Marcus started, but I couldn't listen anymore. I cut him off. "I don't need your approval, Marcus." I turned away and walked into the club, trying to hold back the tears threatening to spill. My family's shallow expectations were suffocating. I wasn't one of them, and I wasn't sure I ever wanted to be. But in that moment, I realized something. Maybe they weren't the ones who needed to change. Maybe it was me. I didn't have to keep defending my choices to them, not anymore. I had something they didn't see, and maybe that was all that mattered. Dinner was always a tense affair when the family gathered. The same routine, the same judgments. But tonight it felt heavier than usual. The silverware clinked, the soft murmur of polite conversation, but underneath it all was the same theme. Emma wasn't measuring up. As we sat around the long, polished table, Marcus leaned back in his chair, his voice carrying just a little too loudly. "I don't get it, Emma. You're working in a nonprofit, right? I mean, it sounds nice, but what does it really do? How does it make money?" Victoria, my sister, joined in, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. "You know, you could be making 6 figures right now, like Marcus and me, but instead, you're out there, teaching underprivileged kids about technology? It's admirable, but what's the end goal? I just don't see how it'll get you anywhere long term." My hand gripped the edge of my wine glass. I could feel my heart beat faster, but I stayed calm. This wasn't the first time they'd belittled my work, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. "It's not about money," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's about making a difference. These kids need access to technology to even have a chance at competing in today's world." "That's what matters to me," Marcus snorted, clearly amused. "But can it pay the bills? That's the question, right? I mean, how do you expect to sustain yourself doing something that isn't even a real job? You're making, 35 grand a year? That's barely enough to cover rent in some places." I could feel my face flush. "It's not about the salary," I said, my voice tight. "I'm building something that matters, not just to me, but to the communities I'm helping." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, don't you want more? Don't you want the luxury lifestyle we have? I mean, look at us. Marcus is on track to make partner. I'm doing great at my firm, and we've got financial security. You're still figuring out your hobby. Marcus joined in, grinning, obviously enjoying my discomfort. I get it, Emma. You're trying to do good in the world, but don't kid yourself. In the real world, if you're not making money, you're not succeeding. And right now, you're just not succeeding. The conversation shifted to other topics, but the damage was done. I could feel the weight of their words pressing down on me. They couldn't see the value in what I did. To them, success was about the number on your paycheck, the status symbols you owned, the career trajectory you were on. I wanted to tell them how much it meant to see the kids I worked with light up when they learned how to code for the first time, how their lives could be changed by something as simple as access to education and technology. But I didn't. Every time I tried, it was dismissed as irrelevant. To them, my passion was just a hobby, something that wasn't worth pursuing unless it could bring in wealth. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I felt more isolated than ever, sitting in the same room as my family but worlds apart from them. Their view of success was so narrow, so focused on appearances and wealth, that they couldn't understand why I chose this path. I stayed quiet for the rest of the evening, letting their words wash over me. But deep inside, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep defending my choices to them. They didn't understand me, and no matter what I said, they never would. I was tired of trying to explain why my work mattered. I'd stopped caring what they thought about my career long ago, but tonight, their dismissal of everything I'd worked for made me realize it even more. I wasn't like them, and I never would be. And that was okay. The evening air felt colder than usual as I stepped outside the club. The familiar crunch of gravel beneath my shoes, the only sound in the otherwise silent parking lot. I could feel the weight of the night pressing down on me, the looks, the comments, the judgments. But this time, something inside me had shifted. I was tired of fighting for approval that I would never get. I reached my Honda Civic and unlocked the door, only to hear Marcus's voice call out from across the lot. Emma, seriously. His tone was loud, theatrical. He always knew how to make his criticisms a performance. I mean, come on, look at this thing. It's practically embarrassing. I took a deep breath, my fingers lingering on the door handle. I wanted to snap back, to throw the words right back at him, but I didn't. Instead, I closed my eyes for a second, letting the moment pass. I knew he was only trying to provoke me, but I was done. I wasn't going to play into it anymore. He took a few steps closer, clearly expecting a response. I mean, you must feel pretty out of place here, don't you? In your little car, while the rest of us have... He gestured toward his Porsche with a condescending flourish. You know, actual cars. I couldn't stop myself from looking at him one last time. His grin was too wide, his arrogance too obvious. You know, Marcus, I said, my voice calm. It's funny, I used to think I needed to explain myself to you, but I don't, I'm done. I could see the flicker of surprise in his eyes, but he quickly recovered. What do you mean? You're just going to ignore me? I opened the car door slowly, feeling a sense of freedom wash over me as I slid into the driver's seat. The weight in my chest, the frustration, the anger, it all seemed so insignificant now. I'm done trying to fit into your little world of comparisons, I said, looking straight ahead, gripping the steering wheel tightly. If you want to keep judging me for the car I drive or the career I've chosen, go ahead, but I don't owe you an explanation anymore. For a moment, Marcus didn't say anything. Then, like he always did, he started pushing again. I'm just trying to help, Emma. I'm trying to make sure you understand what's at stake here. You can't live like this forever, not with your little nonprofit, whatever that is. I took a breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I know what's at stake, and I'm okay with it. But I won't be told I'm failing just because I don't measure up to your standards. Marcus took a step forward, and I could hear the edge in his voice now. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're being stubborn. You've got to wake up, Emma. You can't live in your little bubble forever. I started the engine, the hum of the car's motor almost soothing in the tense silence. I don't need you to wake me up, Marcus. I'm wide awake. I pulled out of the parking lot slowly, not looking back. As I drove, my mind was a blur of thoughts. Frustration, anger, a little sadness. but underneath it all was the quiet resolve that had been building for months. I wasn't going to keep defending my choices to him or to anyone else. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. The road stretched out in front of me, and I realized I wasn't just leaving the country club behind. I was leaving behind the need to prove myself to my family. The drive home was silent, but it felt different this time. The air was clearer, the weight was gone, and as I turned into my driveway, I realized that this wasn't just a small victory. It was the beginning of something bigger. Marcus may not have understood my life or my choices, but I no longer cared. I was done trying to explain. I pulled into my driveway, the familiar motion of the car gliding smoothly over the pavement, but tonight it felt different. As I parked my Civic, I noticed Marcus in the rearview mirror, his red Porsche sitting just behind me. He wasn't backing off. Of course, he wasn't. I got out of the car, taking a moment to breathe in the night air. My modest home, the one he'd so carelessly mocked earlier, stood in front of me, nestled quietly in the middle-class neighborhood. It was peaceful here, the kind of home I'd always dreamed of, even if my family couldn't appreciate it. Marcus stepped out of his car, giving me a long, judgmental look. "I don't get it, Emma. This place? It's kind of underwhelming, don't you think?" I stared at him for a moment, his words hanging in the air like a taunt. He had to know what he was implying, but I wasn't going to let him get under my skin anymore. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I turned toward the garage and pressed the button to open it. The automatic doors slid open, revealing a pristine space with gleaming cars parked neatly inside. The faint shine of the luxury vehicles caught the light. There, in full view, sat my collection. A Lamborghini Huracan, an Aston Martin DB11, and a Ferrari 488 GTB. The total value of these cars, close to $750,000, would have made anyone's eyes widen. Marcus froze, his confident expression faltering. "Wait, what?" he muttered, stepping closer, his eyes now fixed on the cars in disbelief. "What is this?" I walked up casually, the silence between us thick with his confusion. "These are mine," I said simply, not bothering to add any extra flair to my words. "I bought them with my own money. Everything you see here, I did it on my own. No handouts." Marcus didn't say anything for a long time, just staring at the cars, his brain seemingly struggling to process what was happening. Finally, he turned to me, his voice almost incredulous. How did you afford all this?" I thought. "You were just teaching kids about computers or something." I smiled softly, the edge of my frustration fading. "I run a few nonprofit organizations: the Future Minds Foundation, Digital Dreams Initiative, and Technology Access Alliance. They help thousands of kids each year by giving them access to technology and education that they wouldn't otherwise have." Marcus blinked, his gaze shifting between me and the cars, as if trying to reconcile what he knew with what he was seeing. "Wait," he said slowly. "You own all these organizations? But how? And you make that much money from that?" I nodded. "I make a lot more than you think, and it's not just the cars. It's everything. My business is far bigger than anything you could have imagined." For the first time, Marcus seemed to be processing something. The cocky confidence, the smug remarks, it was gone. "You never mentioned any of this." "Because you've never asked," I said, my voice steady now. "You never cared to know what I was actually doing. You were too busy assuming I was failing just because I don't live your version of success." Marcus looked at the cars again, then at me, his face pale. "I had no idea," he muttered. I gave him a small nod. "Most people don't, but that's what happens when you only measure success by appearances." Marcus swallowed hard. "So all these cars, the business, you've been hiding it? Why?" I took a deep breath, the weight of years of silence lifting slightly. "Because I didn't need to prove anything to you or anyone else. I wasn't asking for your approval or validation. But now? Maybe you'll finally see what's been right in front of you all along." I paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. "This is the real me, Marcus. This is the success I've built. Not just the cars or the wealth, but the impact I've made on kids' lives. And I don't need your approval anymore, not for any of it." He stared at me, still speechless, the realization slowly settling in. For once, Marcus had no words, But it wasn't just because he was stunned. It was because, for the first time, he was seeing me, the real me, and he had nothing left to say. I could feel the weight of Marcus's silence as I led him into my house. He'd been unusually quiet since I showed him the cars in the garage. The once smug expression had faded into something that almost looked like guilt. Or maybe it was just confusion. Either way, I wasn't about to let him off the hook yet. I led him past the living room, through the hallway, and up the stairs. We reached my office, a sleek, modern space with cutting-edge technology everywhere, dual monitors, a massive desk, and an entire section of the room dedicated to the lab I'd set up for testing the educational technology we developed. Marcus didn't say a word at first. He stood in the doorway, taking it all in, clearly overwhelmed. The walls were lined with framed patents and awards, recognition for my work that Marcus had never even thought to ask about. It was hard not to notice his surprise, his earlier bravado melting into disbelief. "This is where I run my company," I said, leaning against the desk, watching him absorb the room. "It's called Digital Learning Dynamics. We design educational software for schools, corporations, and government agencies. Last year, we made $67 million in revenue." His mouth dropped open slightly. "Wait, what? You made how much?" His voice was a mix of shock and disbelief. $67 million, I repeated calmly. "And that's just the beginning. We've got contracts with some of the biggest schools in the country, Fortune 500 companies, and even some government agencies. And it all started from scratch. I built this myself." Marcus shook his head, looking at the sleek monitors, the expensive tech, as though it was all too much to process. "I don't get it. How did you keep all this from me? I thought you were just—" He paused, trying to find the right words, but they didn't come out right. "Just doing that nonprofit thing." I crossed my arms, trying to suppress a smile. "Yeah, about that nonprofit. It's not just a hobby, Marcus. The work we're doing with underserved communities is life-changing, but it also helps fund my business, and vice versa." He stared at me for a moment, the confusion deepening. "So this whole thing, the cars, the business, the software, it's all yours? You built it?" "Every bit of it," I said, my voice steady. "And I didn't need a trust fund or anyone's approval to do it, just hard work and determination." He took a few steps into the room, moving closer to the whiteboard covered in flowcharts and goals, markers of the years of planning and effort that had gone into everything I'd built. "I never realized." He trailed off, still processing. "This is huge. Why didn't you tell me about any of this?" I took a deep breath. "I didn't think I had to. I've been doing fine without you or anyone else's validation, but I guess now you see." There was a long pause, the weight of the truth settling between us. It felt good to have it all laid out, to stop hiding my accomplishments just because they didn't fit into the narrow view of success that my family had always championed. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. It was a call from a major university, confirming a large contract we'd just signed with Harvard. I couldn't help but grin. "Speak of the devil," I said, answering the call. As I talked through the details of the contract, Marcus watched me with wide eyes, his expression unreadable. When I hung up, I turned back to him. "Harvard," I said with a smile. "That's just one of the institutions we're working with now." Marcus was silent for a moment, his face a mix of disbelief and awe. I didn't know any of this was happening. You've been quietly building an empire while I've been focused on the wrong things." I nodded. "It's not about flashy cars or office titles, Marcus. It's about making a difference. And along the way, I built a business that's helping change lives and making money while doing it." He swallowed hard, his mind clearly racing. "I had no idea. I thought you were just stuck in a small little world of teaching kids how to use a computer." I shook my head. "That's what you never understood, Marcus. It's bigger than that. It's always been bigger. And now you're seeing it." The silence that followed was heavy. Marcus, usually so full of himself, was finally processing the enormity of what I had accomplished. "Emma," he said, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. I owe you an apology. I've been a jerk. I've only seen things from my own narrow view, and I couldn't see beyond the surface. But this is incredible." I led Marcus into my home office, a place I'd designed to inspire focus and innovation. The room was sleek and modern, a reflection of the multi-million-dollar company I'd built from the ground up. The walls were lined with certificates, patents, and awards for the educational technology I had created. There was a row of monitors displaying real-time data and contracts, proof of the work I'd been doing for years. Marcus stepped inside, his eyes darting around the room, taking in every detail. He was still silent, and I could tell he was struggling to comprehend everything. "This is where I run digital learning dynamics," I began, my voice steady as I walked over to my desk and pulled up the financial dashboard. Last year alone, we generated $67 million in revenue. That's from contracts with schools, Fortune 500 companies, and government agencies. Marcus didn't respond immediately. He just stood there, staring at the screen like it wasn't real. The disbelief on his face was almost palpable. I clicked through a few slides, showing him the contracts I had secured with major universities. "Harvard's one of our latest clients," I added casually. "We're also working with companies like Amazon and Google to develop educational software." He shook his head in disbelief. "But how? How did you build all this?" I leaned back in my chair, letting the question hang in the air. "I built it by focusing on what matters: education, empowering underserved communities. It's never been about flaunting my wealth. It's always been about creating something that lasts." Marcus swallowed hard, his face a mixture of confusion and awe. "I never knew any of this. All I ever saw was you talking about your little nonprofit. I thought you were just making do, scraping by." I chuckled softly, shaking my head. "Yeah, that's what most people think. But it's more than that, Marcus. It always has been." I clicked another button, pulling up real-time metrics for my business. The numbers flashed on the screen. Contracts with major universities, active projects with Fortune 500 companies, government contracts, all generating significant revenue. "This is how I've been able to sustain the nonprofits," I explained. "It's a self-sustaining cycle. The business funds the causes I care about, and the causes help people who need it the most." Marcus leaned forward, eyes glued to the screen. "So this isn't just a side project. You're running a full-blown empire." I nodded, feeling a sense of pride in my work. "Yes, and it's a business that's making a difference. We've been able to help thousands of kids access education and technology that would have been completely out of reach for them. It's been hard work, but it's worth it." Marcus's disbelief deepened. "And this whole time, I never saw it. I never even bothered to understand what you were doing," I sighed. "It's easy to overlook something when it doesn't fit into your idea of success. But my success isn't about cars or luxury houses. It's about impact. It's about doing something meaningful, something that will last long after the flashy stuff fades." He ran a hand through his hair, still processing. "I thought I knew everything about you, but I was completely wrong." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. It was a call from a client, a major university, confirming a large contract for the next year. I answered the call, walking through the details while Marcus stood silently beside me, his expression one of awe and growing realization. As I ended the call, I turned to him. "That contract will bring in millions over the next few years. I've been able to scale this company while staying true to my values. I didn't need a trust fund, a fancy title, or to sell out to make it happen." Marcus finally spoke, his voice quieter now, almost humble. "I never realized. I never understood. You've been building an empire all along, and I was blind to it." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sorrow. "It's not about what anyone else thinks. It's about what you build for yourself and the impact you leave behind." Marcus didn't say anything else. He just stared at the screens, processing everything I had just revealed. It was as if the entire world of possibility had opened up to him, and he had been standing in the dark, unaware of what I had been building for years. The silence that hung between Marcus and me in the aftermath of my revelations felt heavier than anything I'd experienced with him. We were in my living room, the air charged with an unspoken tension. He was pacing, his mind clearly racing, still trying to come to terms with everything I'd shown him. I sat on the couch, arms crossed, not out of anger, but out of a sense of finality. I had laid it all bare, my cars, my business, my nonprofit organizations, and he was still trying to process it, like a man trying to fit pieces of a puzzle he hadn't realized existed. After a long pause, Marcus finally stopped pacing and turned to me. I need to say something, he started, his voice soft, almost hesitant. I looked up, waiting for what was coming. I've been such an ass, he continued, shaking his head. I had no idea. No idea what you've been doing. I just saw the cars, the technology, and thought you were out of touch with reality. Still doing, I don't know, charity work. It never occurred to me how much it meant to you, how big it really was. I could feel the sincerity in his words. But the hurt from the past still lingered. He hadn't just judged my work, he'd dismissed my entire life, for years. But in this moment, I realized that something was changing inside him. I didn't think about the bigger picture, Marcus said, sitting down across from me. I thought success was about status, money, power, like what I'm doing at the firm, or what Victoria's doing with her career. I was blind to the fact that there's more to it, more to success than just appearances. I let his words sit for a moment, allowing myself to feel the weight of everything that had happened before I responded. I get it, I said quietly. I get why you didn't understand. But that doesn't make it okay. You were so focused on wealth. You didn't see that what I've been doing all these years isn't just for me, it's for others. And yeah, it's made me successful. But the point was never about having more. It's about giving back and making an impact. He nodded slowly, his eyes searching mine. I never saw that. I was too busy looking at my own life, measuring everything by how much money I could make, how many things I could own. He looked away, his voice tight. I treated you like you weren't enough, like your choices weren't enough. I took a deep breath, the pain from years of frustration flooding me, but I knew this was the moment we'd been waiting for, both of us. It's not about me needing validation, Marcus. I've never needed that from anyone, especially not from you. I've always known what I was doing, even when you didn't understand. It's about the work and the people I'm helping. I won't let anyone make me feel like I'm failing just because I'm not living their version of success. He swallowed, the weight of his regret sinking in. I'm sorry, I've treated you like you didn't matter, and for that, I am truly sorry. I looked at him, the tension in my chest loosening just a little. I appreciate you saying that, Marcus, but I also want you to understand that I'm not doing this for anyone's approval. Not yours, not Dad's, not anyone's. I've learned to stop chasing other people's expectations. He nodded again, more firmly this time. I get it now. I've been so focused on superficial success that I didn't even see how much you've achieved. I was wrong. A long silence passed, and then he stood, walking toward the door. Before he left, he turned to me, his voice soft but earnest. I promise you, Emma, I won't judge you again. Not for your choices, not for your work. I'm proud of you. I should have told you that years ago. I smiled. A small but genuine smile. Thanks, Marcus. It means a lot. And with that, he left, his words hanging in the air like a new beginning. For the first time in years, I felt a shift, not just in Marcus, but in myself. The burden of needing approval was gone. I didn't need him or anyone else to validate my success anymore. The city lights flickered in the distance as I cruised down the highway, the low hum of the Ferrari's engine vibrating through my seat. It was a warm evening, and the rush of cool air felt liberating against my skin. For the first time in a long while, I felt the weight of everything I had been carrying. Expectations, criticisms, the need to prove myself, lifted off my shoulders. The events of the past few days played through my mind, each moment leading up to this one. The family dinner, the conversations with Marcus, the stunning realization that my brother had never really understood me, or what I had been building for years. But now, in the quiet of the night, I finally felt free. I had stopped defending myself, stopped chasing their approval. I glanced at my phone sitting on the passenger seat. It buzzed again, another message from my mom, then another one from Victoria, and one from Marcus too. I knew what they all said. The guilt, the apologies, the attempts to pull me back into their world of superficiality, but I didn't feel the urge to reply. Instead, I let the notifications pile up, deciding that tomorrow was the right time to sort through those messages, if at all. Tonight it was just me, the open road, the hum of the engine beneath me, and the feeling of peace settling in my chest. I pressed a button on the steering wheel, and the sound system came to life, filling the car with soft music. It was a song I hadn't heard in years, but it was one that reminded me of everything I had accomplished. A small smile tugged at the corners of my lips as I drove, the cityscape unfolding before me. For so long, I'd been worried about what my family thought. I had let their judgment define my sense of success, but no longer. The work I was doing, the lives I was changing, it was all enough. I didn't need fancy cars, flashy titles, or anyone's validation to feel accomplished. The car roared as I sped up slightly, feeling the thrill of the ride. The wind whipped through my hair, and I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't known in years. It wasn't just about the car, or the money, or the success. It was about owning my journey, my choices, and the impact I had made. I drove through the streets, allowing the quiet joy of the moment to fill me up. I had no doubts now. I had built something meaningful, and it was mine. This success wasn't about external validation. It was about knowing deep down that I had done it on my own terms, for my own reasons. As the city lights dimmed behind me, I took a deep breath, letting the peace wash over me. I didn't need anyone else to tell me I was enough. I already knew. The road stretched ahead, the future wide open, and I was finally, fully at peace with it all.